Have you ever been to our Okoboji Great Lakes, or also known as Spirit Water, home to over 3,800 acres of water or 6,270 feet of water? The average depth of our waters is 38 feet, but the deepest is 136 feet. Okoboji is a tourist attraction because of all the attractions that there are, including the Arnold's Park Amusement Park, and boating is the main attraction. A way to keep our water safe is by cleaning up trash and pollution that can affect the water and fish. This week from May 18th to the 24th is National Boating Safety Week as well. This podcast is brought to you by the Iowa DNR, or Department of Natural Resources. The Iowa DNR works hard to keep our waters safe and protect the wildlife that is coming with it. Did you know that the most common way of death on the lakes is by drowning without wearing your life jacket? If a child is under the age of 12 on a vessel, you are required to wear a life jacket, but if you are at the age of 13 or older, it is not a requirement, but it is a must during emergencies. If there is a boat on fire on deck, you must turn off the engine and use a fire extinguisher. And if it progresses, everyone must put on a life jacket and call for help and jump off. There is a minimum of one life jacket for one person, plus many more depending on how many people that you have on your vessel. There is a practice of follow called the 3 R's: reduce, recycle, and reuse, recycle. This means that there is something that the public can do to help preserve anything and everything. The 3 R's are important because they help keep the water and fish sustained and to keep tourists coming back every year. Another risk is do not be under the influence of alcohol, because it is easy to lose control of your vessel and cause injuries or deaths to you or others on your vessel or other vessels. Always check the forecast before you leave the dock to ensure that you do not get stuck in a storm or high wind and safe boating conditions. This ad is brought to you by Parks Marina of Okoboji. Parks Marina of Okoboji serves our waters with water activities and a good time. They also help you find the perfect boat for you and your family to enjoy and have a good time. Next, I'll be sharing some stories about incidents that happened on the water. On a Colorado lake on July 14th, 1996, Aaron Seal, who was 13 years old, was operating a personal watercraft, and he collided with a 19-foot long ski boat. Aaron was taught boating safety and watercraft safety, and Aaron was hit by an intoxicated boater who allegedly did not see him. After they hit each other, the boat turned around and Aaron was caught in the propeller and did not survive. His parents have started the Aaron Foundation in his honor to help prevent boating accidents and injuries or deaths. And another story that I'm also going to be telling you about is this little boy named Jack. He was a 4-year-old boy from Southport, North Carolina, who was jumping off his grandparents' dock and swimming back to the ladder and jumping off again. His mother told him to wear his life jacket and to be supervised by an adult. A short time later, when everyone was done swimming, Jack was nowhere to be seen. The search for Jack began, and his jacket was on a table in the house instead of on his body. Jack was found in the water unconscious, and they could not resuscitate him, and he passed away peacefully. And another story that there's also is about a 4-year-old or a 3-year-old boy named Wyatt from Graham, Texas, was swimming with his sister and older sister in the lake. Wyatt did not have his life jacket on, and his sister was holding him, and his dad turned around for 5 seconds while he was watching them, and he did not see him, and Wyatt was starting to drown. And first responders were called, but they could not resuscitate him. He was conscious when they took him to land, but he was breathing 5 minutes late, or 5 minutes later he was not breathing. Thank you for coming out to our podcast today, Blake.
You're welcome. I'm excited to be here.
Can you tell our listeners about your everyday job?
Yeah, so actually it's pretty crazy with this job that every day is different, and it's very seasonal dependent. So the easiest way to describe our job is we're certified law enforcement, just like any state trooper, deputy, or city officer. But our primary focus is everything off the road. So you're talking hunting, fishing, trapping, boating, ATVs, UTVs, hunter education, shooting, sports, everything kind of off the road or more in the outdoors. Day to day is very different. It's hard to answer because it's very seasonal dependent. In the fall, obviously, most of our time is dedicated towards hunting enforcement. In the springtime, a lot of it's fishing and getting ready for navigation. And then throughout the summer, it's mostly boating and navigation enforcement. So changes quite often every day. And when I say no 2 days are the same, it's spot on.
So tell me more about the boating risks and the hazards that come with boating.
Yeah, so there's a couple of different things to look at, and it all depends on which aspect. If you're talking natural hazards, obviously in natural lakes, it's kind of unknown what's below you. There's certain situations we put out hazard buoys for known hazards, but it's always what's the unknown. And that can fluctuate too. If we have a natural earth event or if, a natural disaster, rocks can move, dirt can slough off, different things like that can be hazards in the water. So that's kind of uncontrollable, but it's always, I always tell folks if you're unfamiliar with an area, check into it before you boat. If it's, seems dangerous or it's cause for concern, slow down your speeds. Then aside from that, there's always the human aspect. You got to be aware of other boaters, just so we can avoid boat incidents or boat collisions. The actions that our boaters are taking too.
Thank you. And how do you catch speeding boaters at high speed while keeping yourself and other law enforcement officers safe?
Yeah, so this one's kind of tricky because there's certain aspects where speed comes into play on the lake, but overall there's not a general speed limit like on the roads. Now Dickinson County is unique. The lakes on Dickinson County have a nighttime speed limit. A vast majority of the time no one is even close to that speed limit because of your visibility. It's just hard to see in the dark, and so the faster you're going, the less reaction time you have. So a lot of people that are out at night are just going slow speed and kind of putzing around the lake. During the day, most of your speed stuff comes in within distance to shore. That's why we have the 300-foot buoys out there, as well as your distance to other boaters. So the speed comes into play when it's affecting either the shore or other boaters. But other than that, there's no really general speed limit on the lake. So it's something we're aware of and something we monitor in the zones and along the shore. To keep us and others safe, it's just keeping that speed low and that distance between other boats. Fairly, overall, pretty good. How should I say that? The boaters out there do a fairly good job of maintaining that because a lot of people are just out there enjoying their time, and so they're not really in a rush to get anywhere. So,
thank you. How many boating incidents have you been to on record so far in your career?
It's tough to say a specific number. I can just kind of give you some general ideas. Usually every season up here in Dickinson County, we usually respond to probably say 10 to 12 boat incidents a year. Now, all of those may be called in as a boat incident and end up not being. It could be more severe than what was called in, or it could be less severe than what was called in. So it fluctuates every summer. Some of them are very minor, and then some of them are obviously very major. But I would say a rough number would be maybe 10 to 12, 15, somewhere in there. Thank you.
What do you do to test anyone who is driving a boat under the influence?
Yes, there's a specific process very similar to the OWI process on the roadway, operating while intoxicated. A few of the specific tests are different because obviously on a boat you're moving, you're bobbing up and down, and so a few of the tests are slightly different. And they're designed that way to be on the water. But the short answer is there is a specific process if there is signs of impairment on the water. We work through a set of tests to study or to measure that impairment, and then a decision will be made after that.
Thank you. How do you take care of someone who is intoxicated while on the boat with the waves?
Yeah, so this one's a totally different beast. This is a lot different than the roadways. A lot of factors in play. You're talking moving water. You're talking both boats moving. If an arrest is made, you're talking now more of a safety aspect because someone's going to be in handcuffs out on a boat over the water rather than on land. We do have specific policies and guidance in place for how we handle that. If possible, more than one officer will be there. Not always possible. But the biggest thing is the life jacket. So before someone goes in handcuffs, a life jacket is secured on them for that aspect. In the event that one of us or both of us would go overboard, that life jacket's already in play and would be able to assist in that situation. It is very situational dependent because there's so many factors that play into it. But the biggest thing is that if an arrest is made on the water, the thought is quickly as we can to get off the water, just because that added factor.
Thank you. What's the regular distance from boats to be from each other on the water?
Yes, there's two major rules, and it all depends on the speed of the boats. So we have two boats in play. If both boats are traveling over 5 miles an hour, they have to maintain at least 50 feet from each other. Okay. If one boat is under 5 miles an hour, then it's 100 feet. So kind of the easiest way to remember it is that if one boat is slower or not moving, you'd want to keep a greater distance from them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What can you do to be safe on the water with other boaters when it's like busy for 4th of July?
Yeah. One of the biggest things is just patience. A lot of people are out there just enjoying themselves and having a good time. Usually when incidents start to happen or sometimes when the negative things happen, people are either rushing or they're not really thinking straight. They're thinking about where are we going for supper, or how can we get to the ramp quick, or maybe they're frustrated for some boats backed up at the ramp or something like that. And so the best thing is just step back, take a deep breath, and just kind of assess what the situation is. A lot of people are out there just to enjoy themselves, to spend time with family and friends. And so, a lot of times, you just got to ask the question, what's your big hurry? You know what I mean? Sometimes there's situations where, whether you need to get off the water for a specific reason. But to be safer on the water, if people are rushing, then you have a greater chance of something happening or congestion happening, whether it's at a ramp or going under a bridge or something like that. Obviously, avoid alcohol and drugs. Obviously, we run into that situation both on the roads and the water, and that's where the OWIs come into play. If you're very new to boating or if you don't know what you're doing, perfectly fine. We kind of recommend either check in before you go or go someone with you, have someone go with you that has done it before. It's one of those things that it puts people more at comfort if you have that person you can ask questions to, or that you can talk to if you have an immediate question out on the water. So the biggest things I'd probably say is just slow down and don't get in a rush. Stay sober, and if you're new to it or if you have questions, do your homework or research.
Thank you. What does it take to be a DNR officer?
Yeah, so like a lot of jobs nowadays, there's multiple different avenues to become a conservation officer. There's not one specific path. The basic, bottom minimum qualifications is a high school education, which is not uncommon for any job nowadays. Like with anything, more schooling doesn't hurt. Me personally, I earned a 4-year degree after high school. There's not one specific major that you have to get if you want to become a conservation officer. There are some majors that are geared more towards it, but not limiting towards it. Okay. Beyond that, it's all on what you can put on your resume, like with any job. So, do you have volunteer experience? Have you ever worked as a seasonal employee with the DNR or like a county conservation board? Have you ever assisted with any research projects? Do you have any work experience that factors into what we do? So the thing to keep in mind is a lot of our efforts are focused around safety in the outdoors and conservation. And so, if your major, your schooling or your volunteer projects are based around whether it is conservation efforts for wildlife or fisheries or plants or prairies, any of that stuff, all that factors into just what you can add to your resume.
Thank you. What is your favorite part about being a DNR officer?
Yeah, my favorite part is the variety of stuff I deal with. When I said earlier that no 2 days are the same, it's spot on. My favorite part about it is that some days I'll be patrolling from a truck, some days I'll be patrolling from a boat, some days I'll be walking around on foot, some days I might be on an ATV or UTV, other days I'll be patrolling off a snowmobile. It's very seasonal dependent and it always changes. And so it's nice because every roughly 3 months the season changes and we move into something different. And so we totally switch how we patrol and what we patrol off of. And that's what's interesting to me because it's very different. And a lot of people ask, hey, what's your day-to-day look like? I ask them the question, what day are you talking about? Because it just changes that much.
Thank you. Is there anything important to add that I didn't ask?
Yeah, just the one thing I thought about, you did a good job hitting on all the things relating to on the lake and what we do and relating to our job. The one thing I just wanted to add coming into the summer here is the responsibility of the boat operator just for the minimum equipment they're supposed to have. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty basic. The 4 things I'm going to list off aren't required for every boat, so check into what you need for your specific boat before you go out. But the 4, safety pieces of safety equipment we check for would be a wearable life jacket for everyone on board, and it has to fit the person on board. Type 4 throwable, which is the square, everyone calls it the seat cushion, but the square flotation device that you can throw to someone, a fire extinguisher, and then a hornbill or whistle. Like I said, they're not required for every boat, so check into what you need for your boat before you go out. But safety equipment is required on those boats. And then your other stuff that factor in is your registration and your number of people and that different things. But no, you did a good job of hitting on everything, kind of what we deal with enforcement-wise on the lake. Just encourage everyone to stay safe and just have fun.
Thank you, Officer Mills.
Yeah.
In conclusion, boating is fun, but also it is dangerous, and you have to be safe while you do it. And that there are laws and regulations that you must abide by before you can have fun on the water. Also, you have to be responsible and respectful not only to yourself but to others on their boat and the lakes. Because the lake is a dangerous hazard, but it is fun. But you have to be careful, and you have to be respectful of others. And always be careful of which boats are coming and where they aren't coming, because a boat can not see you, and they could come hit you head-on collision. And that's how that 13-year-old Aaron, that's how he died, because the person was not paying attention. And there have been so many watercraft incidents that I have researched for this podcast that it is pretty sad, and it's why you have to be careful, because if you aren't careful and you're risky, you could not only take somebody else's life, but you could take your own or your family or friends. Also, in conclusion, you have to be careful and watch who's coming, and you have to check your boat for safety. Make sure that you have all requirements, because if you do not have requirements that are needed, you could cause an accident when you run out of fuel, or your boat can start to capsize if you do not have the plug put into the back of your vessel by the engine motor. Thank you for watching. Thank you for coming out to my podcast. I hope you enjoy reading, and upcoming is our interview with Officer Blake Mills of the Iowa DNR. Thank you.